The future of cryptocurrency is multi-chain, and that means interoperability will become ever more important as the crypto ecosystem continues to expand. Polkadot and Cosmos are two crypto projects that are competing for the interchain crown, and the intensity of this competition has accelerated over the last few months. Today, I'm going to compare two of the most powerful crypto projects out there and tell you which one has the most potential in both the short term and the long term. Before we square up these cryptos, there's something you need to know. Being your financial advisor is not my role. Entertainment and education are the only things you'll get from this crypto bro. Please contact a financial advisor for help with your crypto portfolio. Also note that Atom and DOT are two cryptos I hold, so you won't be getting any bias during this show. Now, if this is your first time tuning in, my name is Guy, and this channel is the perfect place to binge. That's because it's packed with crypto content that's so good it's almost a sin. Coins, tokens, news, and many other important things. If you've already got a grin, subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell to make sure it sinks in. Now that you know what I'm trying to bring, it's time to analyze Polkadot and Cosmos and find out which one will win. Okay, let's start with the founders of both projects. Polkadot was founded by Gavin Wood in 2016. Gavin holds a PhD in human-computer interfacing from the University of York, one of the top universities here in the UK. Gavin co-founded Ethereum in 2013, invented the Solidity programming language used by Ethereum, authored the Ethereum Yellow Paper, and even coded the first functional version of Ethereum. Gavin also played an instrumental role in the creation of Substrate, a software developer kit that makes it possible to create a cryptocurrency blockchain from scratch in a short amount of time. Polkadot, as well as its various parachains, were created using Substrate. Now, Cosmos was founded by Jae Kwon in 2014. Jae holds a bachelor's degree in computer science from Cornell University, which has one of the highest-ranked computer science programs in the world. Jae invented a novel consensus mechanism for cryptocurrencies called Tendermint, which is very fast, very secure, but somewhat centralized. Jae also played an instrumental role in the creation of the Cosmos SDK, a software developer kit that likewise makes it possible to create a cryptocurrency blockchain from scratch in a short amount of time. Over 50 cryptocurrencies have been created using the Cosmos SDK, including the Binance Smart Chain, Terra, Crypto.com's Kronos Chain, and Thorchain. Now, Thorchain is actually a pretty crazy crypto project, and you can learn more about it using the link in the description. Anyways, in terms of development, Polkadot was built by Parity Technologies, a software company based here in London, England, which was founded by Gavin in 2015. Gavin currently serves as the CEO of Parity Technologies. Polkadot's development is coordinated by the Web3 Foundation, a non-profit organization based in Switzerland, which was likewise founded by Gavin in 2017. Gavin currently serves as the president of the Web3 Foundation. Polkadot raised around $250 million across various ICOs and token sales in 2017, 2019, and 2020. The caveat is that around $120 million of these funds were lost when Parity Technologies' Ethereum wallets were compromised. This means Polkadot ended up with around $130 million. Polkadot's mainnet went live in May 2020, and transfers of its native DOT coin were enabled in August 2020. Polkadot is still technically in development, though its roadmap is essentially complete. Cosmos was built by Tendermint Inc., a software company based in the United States, which was founded by Jae Kwon in 2014. Now, Jae left Tendermint Inc. at the beginning of 2020 to work on a new crypto project called Noland, which will use a new programming language Jae created called No. Tendermint Inc. also recently rebranded to Ignite, and according to reporting by The Block Crypto, this is partially because Jae took back the ownership of the Tendermint brand, and partially because Tendermint Inc. as a company wanted to change its focus to incubating upcoming Cosmos projects. Cosmos's development is coordinated by the Interchain Foundation, a non-profit organization based in Switzerland, which was founded by Jae in 2017. Jay also stepped down as president of the Interchain Foundation in June last year to focus on his crypto project and programming language development. Cosmos raised around $18 million across various token sales in 2017, and Ignite recently raised an additional $150 million from various crypto VCs. Cosmos's mainnet went live in March 2019, and it is still technically in development. Cosmos also has quite a few milestones left on its roadmap, and this is primarily because Ignite spent much of its initial time and energy developing crypto technologies such as the Cosmos SDK and the Cosmos IBC. Now, I won't get too much into Cosmos's roadmap for the sake of time, so if you want the full story there, you'll have to check out my most recent update about the project using the link in the description. Anywho, when it comes to what's under the hood, Polkadot uses a proof-of-stake blockchain that can process around 1,000 transactions per second and is currently secured by around 300 validators. Note that the maximum number of validators Polkadot can currently support is 1,000. Polkadot's blockchain is called the Relay Chain. Now, the Relay Chain's purpose is to provide security to substrate-based cryptocurrency blockchains. These cryptocurrency blockchains are called parachains, and they must bond, i.e. stake, DOT to plug in to Polkadot's Relay Chain. There are many different types of parachains, including common good parachains used for things like cross-chain bridges, parathreads, which are pay-as-you-go parachains that can be shared by multiple crypto projects, and standard parachains. Because Polkadot's Relay Chain can currently only support 100 parachains, parachain slot auctions are used to decide which standard parachains are given a slot. In contrast to standard auctions, the winner of a parachain slot auction is determined at a random time shortly before the auction ends. Whichever parachain had bonded the most DOT at that time secures a slot for up to 2 years. To increase the chances of winning, crypto projects looking to secure a parachain slot often run parachain loan offerings, which make it possible for anyone to lend their DOT to the project for the duration of the parachain lease in exchange for the tokens belonging to the project. At the end of the parachain lease period, the DOT loaned to the project by parachain loan offering participants is returned. Now, this makes parachain loan offerings superior to initial coin offerings because you never actually pay anything for the tokens you get, only the opportunity cost of having your DOT locked. Now, there have been 18 parachain slot auctions so far, and 14 parachains have plugged into Polkadot's Relay Chain at the time of shooting. Note that transaction fees on Polkadot's parachains are usually not paid in DOT, but in the native coin of the crypto project running on the parachain. Also note that Polkadot has yet to activate its cross-chain communication protocol at the time of shooting, though its code was recently audited, so it should be launching soon. In the meantime, Polkadot's parachains are not very interoperable, with few exceptions. Now, you can learn more about Polkadot's parachain slot auctions using the link in the description. Like Polkadot, Cosmos uses a proof-of-stake blockchain which can process up to 10,000 transactions per second. This is because Cosmos's blockchain is secured by just 150 validators, which is currently the maximum that Cosmos-based blockchains can support. Whereas the purpose of Polkadot's blockchain is to provide security to other Polkadot projects, the purpose of the Cosmos blockchain is to be an interoperability hub for other Cosmos projects. This interoperability is achieved via the aforementioned Cosmos IBC, which is short for Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol. As the name suggests, the Cosmos IBC makes it possible for cryptocurrency blockchains to seamlessly interoperate. You can think of the Cosmos IBC as being a standardized interoperability adapter that can be added to just about any cryptocurrency blockchain. Over 40 cryptocurrencies have added support for the Cosmos IBC so far, and in theory, Cosmos should be the blockchain they all connect to for optimized interoperability, because it's not efficient for there to be dozens of different bridges between different blockchains. In practice, however, many IBC chains are also connecting amongst each other rather than gravitating towards a single hub, and most of the IBC activity is taking place on Osmosis, a Cosmos-based decentralized exchange that lives on its own blockchain and acts as its own interoperability hub. The catch is that Osmosis's Osmocoin isn't available on any centralized exchanges, and that means one of the only ways to use the DEX is to buy Cosmos's Atomcoin and bridge it over to Osmosis. As a result, Cosmos has become more of an interoperability bridge rather than an interoperability hub. Even so, Cosmos continues to be integral to the expansion of Cosmos's ecosystem. In lieu of crowdfunding mechanisms like parachain loan offerings or initial coin offerings, most of Cosmos's projects opt to airdrop their coins directly to Atom holders, stakers, and liquidity providers. When you consider the fact that Cosmos-based blockchains use their own coins to pay for fees too, this gives Cosmos's Atom a surprisingly similar profile to Polkadot's DOT. And this ties into my favorite topic, tokenomics. In terms of tokenomics, Polkadot's DOT had an initial supply of 10 million, the entirety of which was minted when its mainnet went live. Shortly after DOT transfers were activated in August 2020, the Polkadot community voted for a redenomination of DOT. This divided every original so-called old DOT by 100, resulting in an actual initial supply of 1 billion so-called new DOT. Around 60% of DOT's initial supply was sold to early investors, and the remaining 40% was allocated to the Web3 Foundation. This DOT finished vesting in February last year. According to the Subscan Explorer, almost 50% of DOT's circulating supply is currently being held by the top 25 wallets. It's likely many of these wallets belong to exchanges, but unfortunately, these wallets are not labeled. DOT is inflationary, with no maximum supply, and this inflation rate depends on the amount of DOT being staked as a percentage of its total supply. The Subscan Explorer states that DOT's inflation rate is currently shy of 8% per year, with 55% of DOT's total supply of almost 1.2 billion being staked. According to StakingRewards.com, DOT staking rewards are currently around 14% per year for both validators and delegators, with a 28-day lockup. The minimum stake for validators is currently around 350 DOT, and for delegators it's 80 DOT. Note that the minimum stake required occasionally changes. As for Cosmos, Atom had an initial supply of 236 million when its mainnet launched. Around 80% of this supply was sold to early investors, and the remaining 20% was allocated to Ignite and the Interchain Foundation, with each getting 10%. Coincidentally, Atom also finished vesting in February last year. According to the AtomScan Explorer, almost 40% of Atom's circulating supply is currently being held by the top 25 wallets. It is again possible that many of these wallets belong to exchanges, but unfortunately, these wallets are not labeled either. Atom is inflationary with no maximum supply, and this inflation rate likewise depends on the amount of Atom being staked as a percentage of its total supply. The AtomScan Explorer states that Atom's inflation rate is just over 10% per year, with 62% of Atom's total supply of 294 million being staked. According to StakingRewards.com, Atom staking rewards are currently around 17% for validators and 15.5% for delegators, with a 21-day lockup. There's no minimum stake for delegators, but validators must stake enough to make the top 150 validators buy stake, which is currently over 21,000 Atom. Now, on that note, if you're curious about the top staking cryptocurrencies for 2022, you can check out my video about that using the link in the description. And now for everyone's favorite part, price action and price potential. With an average ICO price of around $1, early Polkadot investors saw more than a 50x return, assuming they sold their DOT at or near its all-time high in November last year. As you can see, DOT appears to be quite correlated to BTC. The price action is almost exactly the same, and it's important to point out that both cryptos continue to be in a long-term uptrend. Since Polkadot's mainnet launched, DOT's supply has increased by almost 200 million. If we assume an average price of around $15 per DOT during that time, this potentially translates to $3 billion of sell pressure. Note that there was probably additional sell pressure from the Web3 Foundation to fund its operations and up-and-coming Polkadot projects. If DOT's impressive price action hasn't made it obvious enough, all this sell pressure has been successfully offset by the demand for DOT, which is coming from a few sources besides speculation. The first is institutions, which have invested at least $100 million in DOT via half a dozen exchange-traded funds, according to the Just ETF website. Most of these were launched over the last year. DOT is also the most held cryptocurrency by crypto funds, according to Messari's recent crypto report, which I covered a while back. More about that in the description. I digress. The second is Polkadot's ongoing parachain slot auctions, which have attracted almost $150 million DOT, worth over $2.2 billion. The total buying pressure depends on the average price all this DOT was purchased at, which is really anyone's guess, and my guess is that at least $1.5 billion worth of DOT was bought. The third demand driver for DOT is coming from use cases on Polkadot's parachains, notably Acala, which recently announced a massive incentive fund for its DeFi platform, which leverages DOT. A convenient side effect of Polkadot's parachain slot auctions is that almost 15% of DOT's circulating supply has been locked for 2 years. And when you add that to DOT's staked supply of around 55%, it means only around 30% of DOT's supply is readily available for trading. This should translate to more price volatility for DOT when demand comes back around. But DOT's massive market cap means it'll have a hard time going higher than 3x in the short to medium term, especially with all the resistance that's been built up around the $30 level. With an average ICO price of around 10 cents per atom, Cosmos's early investors saw more than a 400x return, assuming they sold their atom at or near its all-time high in September last year. That is legit. As you can see, Atom is much less correlated to BTC. Factors specific to the project seem to be moving its price the most, and it's in a very, very strong long-term uptrend. Since Cosmos's mainnet launched, Atom's supply has increased by around 60 million. If we assume an average price of around $10 per atom during that time, this potentially translates to $600 million of sell pressure. Note that there was probably additional sell pressure from the Interchain Foundation and Ignite to fund their operations and up-and-coming Cosmos projects as well. If Atom's impressive price action didn't make it obvious enough, this sell pressure has been more than offset by the demand for Atom, which is likewise coming from many sources besides speculation. The first is institutions, though this exposure is currently limited to Grayscale's recently released smart contract trust, which only has $4 million in assets under management, 5% of which is Atom. Now, that said, there has been an uptick in institutional interest in Cosmos over the last few months, and this seems to be because of all the buzz around Terra, as well as the innovation occurring in Cosmos's ecosystem, as well as on the project itself. Valkyrie's recently announced staking trust is one example here. A second demand driver for Atom is all the new Cosmos projects that are airdropping their coins to Atom holders. This is related to the third demand driver for Atom, which is all the use cases being created for Atom by these new Cosmos projects, mostly in the form of liquidity provision and yield farming. The Osmosis DEX alone currently has over 50 million Atom deposited as liquidity, and while it's again impossible to know how much all this Atom was purchased for, it was probably hundreds of millions of dollars of buying pressure, and that's just for Osmosis. Not only that, but many projects in Cosmos's ecosystem aren't widely supported by centralized exchanges, or even resist being listed on centralized exchanges. This only further increases the demand for Atom as the bridge currency to these new chains. Another advantage that Atom has is a medium-sized market cap. This means that it takes less money to push up Atom's price in percentage terms. To put things into perspective, if Atom saw the same level of investment as DOT, it would result in a 3x from its current price. I reckon this is a realistic short to medium-term expectation for Atom, assuming retail interest returns. If that does indeed happen, and at the rate that Cosmos's ecosystem is growing, I think a 5x move is a possibility. Now, I will stress that this all assumes the crypto market will continue its rally, something which isn't in any way guaranteed. If it doesn't, DOT and Atom are two cryptos that could be good to hold during a bear market, and you can find out what the other ones are using the link in the description. Anyhow, no comparison video would be complete without mentioning a few of the challenges these crypto projects face. The first challenge for Polkadot is adoption. Those of you who've watched my videos about the top Polkadot projects will know that many of them are based in China, or at least were. It's possible, if not likely, that most of Polkadot's Chinese projects left for greener pastures after the Chinese government started cracking down on altcoins late last year. However, the same can't be said for all the Chinese DOT holders who were likely forced to sell their stacks because of the crackdown, and this probably prevented DOT's price from going higher last year. The fact that Polkadot seems to have prioritized its adoption in China probably means that adoption suffered elsewhere, and this ultimately might be why DOT's growth hasn't met the expectations of many holders. The second challenge for Polkadot is competition, and not just from Cosmos. Polkadot's documentation indicates that it's coded in Rust, and this puts Polkadot in direct competition with the likes of Solana and Near Protocol when it comes to acquiring developers. As it so happens, Solana and Near Protocol have raised hundreds of millions of dollars to attract developers over the last year. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for Polkadot, and this means it's going to have a harder time offering the financial incentives required to woo developers. To make matters worse, Polkadot is arguably in competition with its own ecosystem for these same developers, including from Kusama, Polkadot's living testnet. This includes competition for users and even validators in Kusama's case. The third challenge for Polkadot is regulation. As noted in the FAQ section of Polkadot's website, one of the risks associated with the project is that, quote, regulatory treatment of DOT is uncertain. Now, to be fair, this is the case with just about every crypto project, especially with all the antics the SEC has been up to these days. The thing is that Polkadot founder Gavin Wood has seemingly been obsessed with these regulatory risks since last summer, and that suggests they might be substantial. For Cosmos, adoption doesn't appear to be a challenge, and that's simply because the Kepler browser extension wallet used to interact with Cosmos's ecosystem has the same number of downloads as Polkadot's browser extension wallet, which also allows users to interact with Polkadot's parachains. As far as I can tell, the first challenge for Cosmos is development. As I mentioned earlier, Ignite spent much of its initial time and energy developing Cosmos-based technologies that it basically then gave away for free. As amazing as this is, Cosmos itself took a back seat as a result, and the constant delays say it all. These development delays could get worse as Cosmos's second challenge is also competition for developers, and this competition is also coming from Cosmos's own ecosystem. Case in point, many of the top crypto projects in Cosmos's ecosystem were founded by former members of Ignite. In other words, developers have been splitting off from Cosmos's core team to create their own crypto projects, and you'll recall this list includes Cosmos founder Jae Kwon himself. The third challenge Cosmos faces is also regulation. According to the Crypto Ratings Council website, Atom scores a 3.75 out of 5 in terms of how similar it is to being a security, that is, akin to a stock in a company. This puts it closer to the top of the SEC's hit list, which Chairman Gary Gensler surely has tucked away in a drawer somewhere. For reference, XRP scores a 4 out of 5, and we all know what's been happening there. If you don't, you can check out my recent update about the SEC's lawsuit against Ripple using the link in the description. And now for the moment of truth. Which is better, Polkadot or Cosmos? Well, I'll start by saying that it's uncanny just how similar these two crypto projects are. The only real difference is the purposes their blockchains serve, and it looks like they're about to become similar on that side too. That's because Cosmos will be introducing interchain security later this year, which will allow smaller Cosmos cryptocurrencies to leverage its blockchain for additional security in a similar way that parachains do on Polkadot. But let's take it from the top. As far as the founders go, both chaps are nothing short of savants. They're geniuses in every sense of the word, and the only real difference between them is that Gavin is still a part of Polkadot, whereas Jay has cut himself off from Cosmos's core. There are pros and cons associated with each of these decisions, but I reckon they're irrelevant, given that neither of the two are involved with the day-to-day operations of their respective projects at this point in time, at least on paper. It's a different story on the development side, however. Even though Polkadot is behind Cosmos as far as interoperability goes, it's created a much more complex system that continues to improve and expand. When you consider that both projects have been around for about the same amount of time, it's clear that Polkadot has been and continues to beat Cosmos on the development front. Ironically enough, Cosmos's comparable simplicity gives it the edge under the hood. Cosmos is faster, much more interoperable, and in my experience, it's been much more user-friendly as well. Come to think of it, simplicity is probably why Cosmos's mainnet was able to launch more than a year before Polkadot's, and this has contributed to Atom's terrific tokenomics. Being around for that extra year means Atom has had time to become more equally distributed. And the fact that Atom began trading in the middle of the last bear market is the cherry on top, because it probably washed out the weak hands. Unfortunately, Atom's tokenomics don't translate to terrific economics. This is where DOT reigns supreme, because even though DOT isn't used to pay for fees on all Polkadot's parachains, it has more than enough institutional interest to make up for it. Never mind all the secondary utilities on parachains. As for Atom, its primary demand drivers are mostly temporary. As centralized exchanges continue adding popular Cosmos projects, Atom's use as a bridge currency will decline, especially since it hasn't managed to turn itself into the interoperability hub it was hoping to become. I'll reiterate that this role can be just as easily taken by another Cosmos project such as Osmosis, and as it and other Cosmos projects become more popular, we could see future airdrops directed to holders and stakers of their coins instead of Atom. I'll also reiterate that the challenges Cosmos and Polkadot face are applicable to just about every cryptocurrency, so it's safe to say that they're evenly matched on that front. So, which is better, Polkadot or Cosmos? Well, as the facts stand today, Cosmos clearly has more potential for growth in the short to medium term, but Polkadot is poised to take the lead in the long term. Now, it's of no consequence to me because I plan on holding Atom and DOT for the foreseeable future, but I would love to hear from you. Which do you think is the best and why? So let me know by dropping a comment down below. Be sure to smash that like button if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell before you go. If you're looking for more from me, Coin Bureau Clips is the place to be. I also have a crypto podcast that's packed with all the crypto knowledge you need. I'm active on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram too, and give you my thoughts on the crypto market in my Telegram group. My weekly newsletter is where I give you more in-depth reviews, show you what other cryptos I hold as part of my portfolio, and what other videos I plan to do. If you want to support the channel, head on over to the Coin Bureau merch store and the crypto swag that's right for you. You can find your way there using the links down in the description. They should be just within view. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and stay crypto.